All right, let's let it start.
Season 4.
I think Danny might join later on. He was on here earlier, but something happened with his camera. But we are live. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Jarizi. I got Patrick over here. We got Kyle over there. We got Danny somewhere. And we have a special guest for you today. We have Anderson Silver. He is an author. He also hosts his own podcast called Stoicism for a Better Life. And if you haven't heard of Stoicism, you're welcome. Stoicism is I wouldn't say new, because when I say new, I would say about like a year or two. Stoicism is a topic that I've gotten introduced to maybe in the past 3-4 years. And man, has it changed my life. And I have spread that, like, I don't want to say a word that might get me, but like the pandemic, it's spread amongst my friends, and now they got the Stoicism bug. And we got the master over here, Anderson Silver. Welcome to the show, Anderson Silver. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, man. What an introduction. What?
So, like,
happy to spread wisdom like a pandemic, man. Let's make the pandemic's been bad, but pandemic's been good too. Words are words, labels are labels. Let's just spread wisdom here, right?
Definitely.
I love that. And like you mentioned, don't get it twisted. This isn't Anderson Silver, even better. This isn't Anderson Silva, even better. This is Anderson Silver. And like he said, Anderson Silva conquered the physical world. Anderson Silver is going to help us conquer the mental and spiritual realm. Anderson Silver, please just give us an intro about you for the people that don't know.
Sure thing, man. Let me see. Born and raised in Montreal. I'm a capitalist wet dream. I grew up studying hard, went to university, got my degrees, got my CPA, went out and got my six-figure salary job, got the house, the wife, the dogs, the kids, check. I did everything society told me that I should do to live a good life. And then I took a long, hard look in the mirror one day and I went, I still feel empty. This is not, doesn't make sense. So I went off on this self-re-education journey, if you will. That was about 10 years ago, a little bit more maybe. Fast forward a few years, I write a book as like a bucket list thing. Just like, hey, look at me. I wrote a book, self-published, maybe I can sell 20 copies. And in the first year, it sold like 3,000 copies.
Oh, wow.
So I noticed there's an appetite for this kind of wisdom out there. Not preachy, not rules. It's not a deontology. It's a framework that helps one achieve their best potential, if you will.
Right. And we just went down on a rabbit hole of your content. And guys, am I right? So digestible. So
oh, yeah, definitely.
It doesn't feel like you're selling anything. It's just, hey, here's some information. Might be useful for you, might not be. You know?
Right. Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you laugh at my jokes.
Exactly. Or me.
Yeah, and you've delivered it in a way that is applicable to any audience in my perception. The way that I received it, I feel like any audience could be having use from it.
I appreciate that, Patrick. And the intent behind my content, and starts with the book. I wrote the book first, the podcast and the articles and everything else follows because there was such an appetite for the books. But my intent behind the book was to just get the information out there for us stupids. You know, I'm a CPA. I don't know anything about philosophy. I don't know anything about life. I was taught religion at some point, and I went, that doesn't really make sense to me, but to each their own. And I started reading some philosophy long ago, right? Because it sounds so cool. And I picked up this guy named Arthur Schopenhauer, and I almost puked after like 4 pages. And that was it. That was it for like 10 years. Then I find this letters from a Stoic written by Seneca. And I'm reading these letters basically between two buddies. And I'm like, holy shit, guys. Like, this is 3,000 years old. I feel like I could have written this last week to my buddy. Like, they're concerned about the same things. They're worried about the same things. It's about money, possessions, emotions, how to do the right thing despite having the instinct to want to do the wrong thing. All the same stuff. So Stoicism kind of grabbed me and pulled me in a more wise direction, if you will. And what I do now, I haven't quit my full-time job. I'm not a full-time author or anything, but on my personal time, I've dedicated whatever time I have to spread this wisdom out. My podcast is completely free. There's no ads. There's nothing being sold. I'm just sharing the tidbits that have literally saved my life now twice by my count. And I'm trying to put it out there for other people. And people are running with it, man. It's really helping people achieve something greater within them.
It is. And if I may interject, you said something in one of the clips that Jarizi sent me. You were very transparent in admitting that you are an angry person, that you deal with a lot of anger, which is something that I'm working on as well.
Same
and
here.
That it helped you, keep that in control, to be able to identify that, it's a normal thing to feel, it's a normal emotion, but managing it is a work in progress, and it takes work. It takes, studying philosophy, studying nihilism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Could you tell us a little bit more about the anger that you feel? Because I'm an angry fuck as well, man. Like point blank.
Wait, let me get a pen and a pad first, because I need to take notes.
Bro, if I had a nickel for every toaster I broke over stupid shit.
Seriously.
So, we're a product of our environment. And for those of you who's listened to my stuff, you'll know I always preach about how whatever you're feeling, no matter how fucked up you feel, it's normal because you're made this way. You didn't choose to be stupid. If you're doing something stupid, you're just a product of your environment, or it's bad coding, which is our emotions. So when it comes to anger, personally, my anger fueled me, right? I was taught to win. I was put into competition as a child. I did competitive racing. I won. I crushed it. I was competitive in school, right? And that emotion and anger fueled me. I was winning. So as far as I was concerned, being angry was not a weakness. Not being angry was a weakness. Giving in was a weakness, right? You got to go get it. We literally live in a world that goes by expressions like grab the bull by the horns. Like, you can't grab a bull by the horns. It's going to kill you. Like, you got to tread around the bull soul. You know what I mean? So the way I learned to deal with anger, the only thing that worked for me, I tried alcohol and drugs. That didn't work.
Yes.
I tried winning, like really putting myself into my career. That didn't work. I tried the gym. I tried I went down the rabbit hole of bad relationships. The only thing that worked. Oh, and I even tried Buddhism, for those of you who are out there, and Buddhism came close. The reason why Buddhism didn't work for me is because Buddhism treats emotions like water off a duck's back. You just got to let it go, right? I can't. I'm an angry mother. I can't let it go. And so Stoicism helped me make sense of this, to accept that, okay, I'm angry. I concede that I cannot make good decisions when I'm angry, so let me walk away right now and come back when I can make a decision. And then it gave me the tools to be able to make good decisions. How do I meditate on this, reflect on it? How do I consider the other people? Yeah, I'm angry, but there are other people involved in this equation. These things that I never used to see before, Stoicism, the framework, has allowed me to be able to consider in my decision making. So I sleep a lot better at night now, instead of worrying about how I'm going to replace the toaster.
Well said, man. I love it.
Yeah, I think the hardest part about it for me is the walking away part. And do you think, as far as how it changed your life and how it saved your life, I feel like Stoicism, for me personally, it made its way slowly around all of my life. Like, it started with the anger, then it went to the sadness, then it went to like jealousy and, the imposter syndrome and all that. And like you said, like it just bleeds in all aspects of life, and Buddhism gets close, like meditating, all that, and trying to almost disconnect yourself from the emotions and almost kind of devalue the emotions. But it's natural. People feel it. All the monks have to come up with practices in order to calm it down. So it's a natural occurring thing. And as far as dealing with anger and dealing with emotion, initially I thought Stoicism meant that monk mode where it's like, I don't feel any emotion. Can you just kind of clarify the Stoics' way of handling emotion? Is it more just feeling the emotion and then kind of being composed and making the right decisions? Because Stoicism is more living by the morals and the values that you have, correct?
Correct. But here's the thing, Stoicism, and the reason I think it still works after 3,000 years, it's very real. It never imposes anything and says, you can't do this, you must do this. It just says, hey, you're a human being. You are going to have emotions. The same way when you stub your toe on that coffee table, You don't go diddly dee, right? You go motherfuck this piece of shit, right? Every time.
I love this guy.
You can't help that, right? This is what we refer to as proto emotions. It's the same thing I do when I step on a Lego piece that my kid leaves lying around. The proto emotion is you can't help it. It's like when you go out to sea, if you get nauseous, you can't help but turn green. This is a physical reaction. That's the hardware. The software, however, has evolved, right? Whether you believe in evolution or not, the mental side of the body, the duality within that most religions and all philosophies seem to accept, agrees that our consciousness, our spirit, or our rational mind, whatever you want to refer to it as, the something more, is capable of doing more, whereas the body just wants to react, right? So Stoicism will tell you, accept your proto-emotions. If you've reacted on your proto-emotions, like, it's cool, you're a bad dog, you're going to have to apologize for it. But don't feel bad for your proto-emotions. Just own up to them. Apologize, make up for it, and then get back to being yourself. And being yourself means deal with the issue at hand. So if you weren't able to walk away, that's not a strike against you. That means there's just one additional issue you have to deal with, right? And you learn to do this over time. You don't impose too many things to tackle at once, like baby steps. So that's how Stoicism would advise a beginner to deal with their anger. Something else that's important here is Stoicism, or to be stoic, is an adjective, right? People say, oh, look at him, he's so stoic.
Right.
He's walking through life with a stiff upper lip, doesn't give a fuck, right?
That's
that's what people think Stoicism. It's just an adjective. In reality, the philosophy accepts we're broken human beings. The very beginning point of Stoicism accepts that we are decrepit against our own will, right? This is actually Socrates and Diogenes were big on this as well. The nature side, the animal side of us, the hardware side, is decrepit, right? It gets angry, it gets jealous. I mean, this body, we all like to think it's an awesome miracle of nature, but it's an ugly bag of pus as far as I'm concerned. It's only what's in here in my consciousness that's important to me, right? That's what Stoicism focuses on.
Wow, I love that.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. And, another thing, I recently listened to like a few of the episodes that you have on Spotify, and one big, I guess, part of Stoicism that you talked about was sorry, I can't quote you directly, but it was pretty much to control what you can control. I know that another analogy for that would be to, play the cards that you're dealt. For example, like if you're in a work environment and you have coworkers who you're frustrated with for one reason or another, you have to just do what you can in that environment, knowing that you cannot control their behavior.
Yeah, that is such a, we talk about the software, the being more advanced than the body being the hardware, has all these emotions and it gets angry. They're not bad, right? Pessimism, anxiety, these are defense mechanisms. These are things that are built in our bodies that helped us survive in the past. They're just useless now, which is what's causing a lot of our consternation and anxiety. And a big part of this, especially in this modern day age where we see everybody on social media in their best, is we look at our situation, we project with our cognitive capacity, here's how things could go. We imagine a reality where everything in the universe around us happens the perfect way for us, and we say, this is what I want. And then we have the audacity to get upset when things don't happen perfectly and happen our way. This is what makes us angry. So to accept people at the office, to use your example, that are being, dicks and dillholes and Karens and whatever, it's par for the course. It is what it is. They're not you. You can't control them. You can barely control yourself. Like, don't worry about others. They're just pieces on the chessboard. You worry about moving the king, which is you.
That is beautiful,
wow,
man.
amazing.
I wanted to read something from Meditations that I wanted to connect. So I think in the very first chapter, Marcus Aurelius says, do everything as if it were the last thing you were doing in your life. Stop being aimless. Stop letting your emotions override what your mind tells you. Stop being hypocritical, self-centered, irritable. And the last part of this is what stood out to me. You see how few things you have to do to live a satisfying and reverent life? ? And I think, like you said, Stoicism has lasted or has stood the test of time because, these are things that if we can manage these emotions, these desires, these instinctual things, whether good or bad, life is pretty easy to live. It's pretty easy to get through, as long as you can find a way to manage these emotions. And I think that's why it's so digestible for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. This goes back to our cynic cousins, actually, to Diogenes of Sinope. If your readers or listeners are not familiar with philosophers, Diogenes of Sinope is probably the most savage philosopher of all time. He's awesome. Many stories of him trolling Alexander the Great. I recommend you guys look him up. But what he taught us is we're animals. At the end of the day, what do I need to do? I need to eat. I need to sleep. I need to drink water. Okay. I need to do this repetitively if I want to stay alive. And assuming I'm going to be alive tomorrow, might be nice to have a little nest egg of a loaf of bread or something in my pocket, correct? This is essentially what we do. In our modern day, we're taught the only way to do this is through a solid paycheck and a good job profile, right? That is a good way to kind of live life, but it's not the only way. But I digress. The little bit of like everything extra we want over and above the basic food and shelter and water that we need, Diogenes would say not only is it unnecessary, but every single item causes you consternation and pain. As Stoics, we don't really accept this. We say, well, look, man, if you want to make money. Just don't be attached to it. Just don't make it your sole purpose in life. Just don't make it be your raison d'etre. So I use my past and present as an example, right? I have a good job. I'm very fortunate. I'm very lucky. I have a good job. And people, on Instagram, when we talk, they'll say, oh, how do you do this, that, balance the other? And I say, look, you might be working a minimum wage job somewhere, right? You're going paycheck to paycheck. But every morning, we wake up the same. And every night, we go to bed the same. We don't know if we'll wake up tomorrow. And we don't know if we'll make it to the end of the day. Who's really living a life more or less than the other? Are you able to live life more or less than somebody else based on external material goods, right? These are the kind of questions that we have to tackle. And that quote you read there tries to get the reader, or in this case, I'm not sure if you guys know, but the Meditations is actually Marcus Aurelius' own journal where he writes to himself. But I use these quotes often to challenge my readers to think to themselves, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Why do you want to wake up tomorrow? These kind of things, when you have a reason to be, your day-to-day ethical and moral questions become a lot easier to deal with.
Right. And just like I just watched the I don't know if it's called, it's a prayer, but you reference Lucifer, the what is your desires?
What is it you desire? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Man, I literally just listened to that fresh this morning, and you know what? When you're so wrapped up in those emotions, it's hard to think, what am I really wanting out of this? Because you're drunk and you're high off the emotions you're feeling. I mean, I know primarily when I'm even when you're happy, when you're pissed off, when you're depressed, it's almost like the answer's right there. You know what I mean? It just you need to open your eyes and see it.
Exactly.
And it's funny because Stoicism has been around for thousands and thousands of years. And I feel like now more than ever, it's probably the most applicable just because of social media. And like we mentioned in the podcast previously, there's a lot of criticism that doesn't really help you. There's a lot of feedback that doesn't mean shit, really. Like, oh, yellow, that kind of yellow you're wearing. It's kind of like, I'm wearing a sweater and it's cold. You know what I mean? And I mean, I think back then too, there was a quote, I don't remember, but gossip and the talk of the town was already a problem back then when they were sending telegraphs and like WordPress and all that. I mean, imagine what it is now with social media and the instant feedback that you can get,
But you have to think these were still human beings that just wanted to not get hurt. So the feelings they were feeling was the same. Here you might be like, oh, did this person DM that person or say something in the comments that was trolling me or whatever? In the past, it might have been, oh, did that person slave whisper with that other person slave when they were sending messages? At the end of the day, the hurt, the pain, the worries were all the same, right?
Right. That's true. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like as primal as we can get, humans need to be in some kind of tribe or some kind of community. So, I guess it's more of like just wanting to belong and not wanting to be an outcast or outed from the rest of civilization, right?
Part of it, exactly. And that's where Stoics differ from a lot of other philosophies. We choose to participate in this nonsense. We see it for the nonsense that it is, but we choose to participate in this game called life to help other players along.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can admit that my previous idea of Stoic is like, oh, you can't laugh. You know, if it's funny, the most you give is just a
that's the adjective. Yeah.
Like the Terminator or something, or like Kobe Bryant sometimes when he's playing basketball, you know. But yeah, I would always kind of combine and fuse the maniacal drive. Like you said, you were put into sports and you have that drive of wanting to beat the person, wanting to win. Do you think that kind of is a breeding ground for Stoicism, or is that another category, like a toxic masculinity, or like a toxic masculinity category?
Yeah, you nailed it, man. That's
Good
toxic.
question.
That's toxic. It's toxic everything, not just masculinity. Stoicism is not about being a tough guy, okay? Virtue is what we pursue. Virtue for ancient Greeks and Romans was, of course, strength and power. But everything manliness was that for them was also to have wisdom, kindness, benevolence, to be in equanimity, right? These were all important. So that's what Stoicism pursues. It's not just being tough or strong. In fact, I go to the gym a lot less ever since I've started practicing Stoicism, because I don't want to put time into my body more than is necessary to keep it healthy, period. That's it, right? Any more time spent at the gym is wasted. So Stoicism is not a kind of macho, tough guy thing. I'll tell you what, I cry a lot more, and sometimes like a baby. The other day I was listening to Luciano Pavarotti, and I started bawling. Like it was happy joys that came out. And I think it's because I'm a lot more in tune with my emotions, which is part of me, which is a healthy thing. So Stoicism has really allowed me to, I guess, meet myself for the first time and cultivate the most important relationship in my life.
That's amazing. Yeah, because I was going to say, I was curious what your opinion was on how Stoicism is in relation to the quote-unquote alpha male. And because, toxic masculinity and the alpha male, quote-unquote, are often mentioned in the same conversation. Right. And a lot of the ideas that are expressed with what an alpha male would be, you could it could cross over into the idea of Stoicism. So what's your take on what an alpha male, how would you define that in relation to Stoicism, and if there's any like correlation between the two?
Great. Good question. Here we have to be careful, okay? English is a very poor conduit of data, right? We use the same words in different ways. Different people understand the same words in different ways. So context becomes very, very important. Toxic masculinity and alpha male in today's lexicon, I see it as a very negative thing, okay? It's just, it's very male-centric. I don't agree with it. There's no kind of, I'm not sure where it comes from, but there's this drive lately that's happening. And unfortunately, Stoicism got pulled into the gravity of this thing because Stoicism is very tough guy. Like at the end of the day, you are that tough guy, right? And people do tell me, yeah, you're Stoic. I can see you don't care about stuff. And like, it's not that I don't care about stuff. I care way more. It's just I know what I care about now. And I care about what I want to care about. That's the difference. So no, I don't care about these. It kind of reminds me of that. You guys watch Rick and Morty, that quote when he says, I don't care about what, I hear your boos. I don't care because I know what makes you cheer or something like this. So
I don't know. Sorry, but
right. So, but it's more a matter of, I don't care about the same things that everybody else cares about. I care about what's important to me. So to get back to what an alpha male is for me is, okay, we're the males. We have to have a little bit more strength around the house. I'm the one that has to carry stuff, and I take pride in maintaining my own stuff. So I have to be the physically stronger one. I work out to maintain that, right? Yeah. Courage is important. Once or twice when there were conflicts, everybody inside the house, I go outside, put myself as a human shield there. But then wisdom. I have 2 huge libraries in the house, and I'm trying to encourage the kids to check out books like they would do at the library to kind of make a habit out of it for them, right? We have philosophy discussions with the family. We'll have little topics in a aquarium jar, and we'll pull out little notes and just talk about that with the kids. What do they feel? What do they think about it? Right? Use the Socratic method to just share what you think, to kind of open their minds. I talk about my emotions with the kids to teach them kindness and benevolence, to show them it is okay what you feel. You don't have to hide it, because what they watch on TV tells them they have to hide their emotions. So my definition of an alpha male, the way I see Stoicism, is far, far, far different than what the common lexicon today would have it be.
That's what made Marcus great, right? Was the keyword benevolence. Like he had the opportunity to become a tyrannical ruler if he chose to. He could have let that consume him, but he chose to pursue virtue, and he was a benevolent leader, to the point where I think he even appointed his brother Lucius to be co-ruler. Is that correct?
Yeah. So the way it went in the Antoninus era, that's great, by the way. Thanks for bringing it up. They were ruling for 5 generations. They were always ruling as 2 emperors, to make sure that there was no kind of tyrannical emperor that would, mess shit up the way they tended to do. So they were always ruling in double. Marcus Aurelius, unfortunately, his brother died during the Antoninus plague. So Marcus Aurelius ruled alone for a while, but he was known as the last great emperor. He was known to be very benevolent, always rule in equanimity, regardless of what situation he was in. Unfortunately, he left his chair to Commodus, which was
Phoenix,
one of the worst emperors. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, geez.
But you know what? A footnote to his defense: Marcus Aurelius, all his kids died during the Antoninus plague. So he wanted to put 2 emperors after him. There was just nobody left. And then he knew, and the movie, the Gladiator, the beginning of the movie alludes to that. He knew he shat the bed with a continuation of power, and he couldn't do anything about it at the end. It's kind of a sad end to a beautiful leadership.
The Joker.
Ironically, it's like, to bring another analogy, because me and Jarrell, we're big fans of like comics and whatnot, but the way that you're kind of describing the individual, the benevolent individual, is almost like Bruce Wayne or Batman. And
yes,
because he shows restraint in not killing, although he's fully capable of doing that.
Exactly.
So, that's the character that comes to mind when I'm hearing the description.
Wait. Hold on. Welcome, Danny. Danny's here.
Welcome, Danny.
Yeah, some technical difficulties, but we're here. In the cave, it's always a debate between Batman being a superhero or just being like a vigilante. But I would say, he's got some kind of toxic masculinity issues as well. I would say Captain America is more issues. Captain America is more of a stoic role model. Would you agree?
No,
Can I challenge that?
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
This should be interesting.
Challenge it too.
So Captain America, the problem with him is he's too he believes in an ideal, and it's an ideal that drives him. Okay. And when it comes to like any belief system, socioeconomics, religion, philosophy, whatever, the most dangerous belief system you can have is the one you currently have, because you just accept it as being the best and you stop searching for a better answer. Right. Okay. So Captain America wouldn't strike me as a stoic, because he's just stuck in his own, like, all right, we're great, let's go. Like, yeah.
Right. Can I add on to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So to go along with that, there's a perfect example of Captain America in the turmoil with Bucky. Bucky was guilty of many crimes, but Captain America's love for Bucky would not allow Captain America to turn him over.
Checkmate.
If that were Batman, he would have turned him over immediately, regardless of who that was.
Now, with Batman, though, I want to counter on Batman too. He's got come on, he's a maniac, dude. He's got serious issues. He's got no control over his emotions. The only time he restrains himself is because he's like, I know I'm going to get you later. You just wait.
That's fair too.
Yeah.
So would you say more of a Superman?
So who would be the most stoic?
I would say Wolverine, but he's got his own virtues, right? But
Wolverine is one of my favorites. I put Wolverine and John Wick in a similar category. They're capable of doing everything, but they just want out. But the good in them somehow pulls them back in. I'd put those two as Stoics.
There you go. That's great analogy. I do think
he's
John
right
Wick.
there, by the way. You see him, John Wick, over my shoulder right there. What?
Oh, there he is.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
Wow, I never thought to compare John Wick and Wolverine. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
It's funny I had to come in when there's a superhero talk because
He's the least versed in the superhero talk.
So, Anderson, you had mentioned something early on about how you do not favor the weekend over, a weekday because it's just another day.
Yeah.
And that's something that I had to come to realization, like within the last couple of years, is to put value in each and every day, regardless of what I'm doing. Because something that I saw, like one of your posts, is the world is a perception of is your perception of what it is, correct? So, and to like go to elaborate on that more is like within one of your episodes on Spotify, you had mentioned about like an idea of what when less is more. Actually, I think it was the episode where you're talking about the groceries. Do you recall?
Yeah. It's there's a lot happening, and let me pick and choose a few things I can talk to, because the beauty of philosophy and Stoicism, one sentence can contain 15 ideas behind it. So, and when you're trying to dive deep into them, it's good to pinpoint topics. I love the example you bring up about weekends versus weekdays. In the before times, before I found my new life, I used to live for titles and money, accomplishments rather, so that I could share them at the next party. So I was living for the weekend, or when you have a family, it's for the dinner party every 2-3 weeks or whatever. That's what I was living for the Christmas parties, for those dozen or so events during the year. Those were the highlights where you got to then share, like, I did this and I got that and da. What a shitty way to live if you think about it. You're wasting 365 days a year living in consternation, worrying about what am I going to show off as, like a high school reunion almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just wasting your time. So that's an extreme example, but living for the weekend is the same thing. Like, I'm trying to teach my kids, they're in high school, and the weekend arrives and they sleep in till noon. I'm like, you're going to have to wake up at 6:30 tomorrow. Like, why are you sleeping in for 5 hours now when you're going to punish yourself tomorrow, right?
Right.
So one thing that Stoicism has taught me is the monumental difference between living for the moment, which is what I used to do, and living in the moment. And living in the moment is a lot easier when we simplify things, right?
Yeah.
When I sit down for a meal, I'm no longer wondering about, am I going to have the salmon crusted with the pistachio, blah, blah, blah. I have a piece of peanut butter and jelly toast. And I think about those times in primary school when I'd have a little lunchbox, I'd open it with a banana, my peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I'll eat that sitting in the sun. And that'll give me half an hour of happiness that no meal at a restaurant is going to give me. That's what I try to focus on now. Being in the moment, being present, being mindful, enjoying the simple things.
Right. And that, for me, like the take that I get from that is that a lot of times less is more. When you're looking to live in that moment and, live for the moment and appreciate, what is currently present in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just like he mentioned earlier, like he had the house, he had the family, he had the job, he had everything, but something was missing. Like, no matter how much you try to compensate for that, that necessity that you do need, which is your mindset and just your attitude of how you handle things. And how you face challenges and all that, which I feel like Stoicism equips you for. It just, like, a homeless guy with those principles in their mind might be happier than like a Steve Jobs or an Elon Musk,
And that's Diogenes. That's exactly who Diogenes was. He was homeless. Diogenes is the guy that lived in a barrel with dogs. You might have seen the painting of him. And if you want to be a cynic like him, you give up everything. You just keep a little bag to keep bread in, and that's it. But he would consistently state he was happier than anyone. And Alexander the Great was a big fan of his, okay? And don't forget, Alexander the Great was tutored by Aristotle himself, right? And we taught Aristotle science until the 17th century. And yet Alexander the Great would travel to meet Diogenes. He met him on a few occasions.
Oh, wow.
And on a famous occasion, he said, "Great Diogenes, I am a big fan of yours. I will give you anything from my vast empire. You name it. What would you like?" Diogenes looks up at him and goes, "Man, would you mind moving a little to your left? You're blocking the sun."
That's beautiful. I love it.
That's amazing.
That's funny. And also I read, I mean, it's kind of something that the Stoics say, but you also had a post of, or you posted something about how Stoics, they view death in a certain way, not more of like a cynical thing, but more of a inevitable thing. So let's enjoy life right now. And like going back to your conversation about living it up for the weekend, it's like, what if you die on Wednesday? You know what I mean? Or you don't even make it to the weekend.
Yeah, that'd be sad.
Exactly.
So there's that too. And just that view, because I feel like just that if you change your outlook on death and have that perspective, then you just, on the flip side of that, life just seems more vast. And I feel like it opens up a lot more possibilities and opportunities just to fill one day, you know, instead of just seeing as Monday, usually I just go to the gym, do biceps, and then I work at night. So I usually just sleep around 3 and then wake up and, you know, this is the shindig. But if you have that thought of like, man, I could die any day, let's live it up. You know, you can still go to work, but maybe, I don't know, you go to a friend's house instead. You break the pattern somehow and just kind of be present and let go in there with an empty cup and let it fill instead of having your preconceived ideas already in there. Yeah. So I love that.
Exactly. That's great. And it's even simpler than that. You can still go to work. You don't have to do something after work, but it's how you approach work. When you walk in and you see someone, you're going to be like, I might not see you again. Cool. It's so good to see you. You look so good. Like, hey, let me get you a cup of coffee. I've never made you a cup of coffee. I've worked with you for 3 years, right? Your whole attitude changes. We refer to this as a memento mori. Remember death. I have it tattooed on the inside of my right arm, so I see it before I do anything. And Stoics were huge on death, not because we have a morbid sense of humor, although some of us do. But it's because 2 reasons. One, we have a very unhealthy relationship with death. We fear it. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to see it. This is unfortunately something that Christianity brought upon. Like pagans were a lot more comfortable with death. There were other religions in the past that were comfortable with death, but now we just kind of don't want to talk about it, don't want to see it. And when it happens, we quickly bury everything away and then we move on, right? Stoicism approaches that in a different way. It says, look, you're going to die. There's no life without death, so let's stop worrying about it. When you're dead, it's not your problem anyway, so what are you worried about? It's actually a good thing. So just keep living life as hard as you can until you die, and when you're dead, you're not there to worry about it anyway. Move on. The other side of it, which you were touching upon, is every day is after. You know, at the beginning of the episode, I said jokingly, I don't see weekend versus weekday. Every day I wake up, I open my eyes, and I'm like, I made it. I'm on this side of the grass again. And I say that jokingly, but eventually you start believing it because it is the truth. We ignore this. We wake up every morning assuming we're going to close our eyes at night and open our eyes the next day. But one day, for sure, this is not a maybe, for sure, we won't make it to bedtime or we won't wake up in the morning. So why do we ignore this, right?
Right. That's very cool.
Right.
I mean,
definitely.
It's very eye-opening, and like even like you said, that going to work, like you could still go to work.
Yeah.
And, I mean, personally, me, I go to work, you know, I clock in, I go get coffee. There's like a system already that it's almost like I'm automated, right? Yeah, autopilot. So I just feel like even with like let's go into mental health and like the depressive state. If you and you know, there's a lot of I worked at a children's hospital, and man, the suicide attempt cases that we've seen there, especially during the pandemic, drastically increased. And just thinking about like what a tragedy it is for the young generation to be dealing with something so heavy that they have to resort to that. But even adopting that mindset of, you know what, instead of seeing death as an escape, let's see death as an inevitable finish line. So
right.
It kind of shines everything around you a little bit more, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Right,
it's
right.
a great point.
Anderson, I want to quote you in something that you said, which is acceptance is the road to all change. And with what we're talking about now, just like the topic on death, I think now when someone comes to the realization, accepting that is a something that is going to happen regardless of what we do. I could see how that would be the change. Accepting that would be would equate to the change in how we handle day-to-day life, like bringing up the value in our daily routine, whether it's at work, and changing like our perception of these interactions we have that we may be taking for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's this thing called cognitive behavioral therapy. It was a modern psychological technique brought about in the 70s. And it was two Stoics that wrote this, right? So Stoicism, the way it approaches on how we deal with our emotions, it kind of found a systematic way to be able to manage the human side of things while we continue to get to the animal side of things, right? We kind of have to balance the two together. Mm-hmm. The human in us doesn't want to think about the fact that we're going to die. The animal in us knows it will die. Realizing this certainly will change your perception of time and life. We are put under the yoke, the pressure of day-to-day stresses, and we feel like, oh shit, I have to deliver, and if I don't, I'm bad. If I don't do this, I'm in trouble. If I don't accomplish, I'm bad. I'm bad. Because we are a product of our environment. Western culture is shit. It does not take into account the human asset. We really need to discuss philosophy more as its culture, and we need to put a lot more resource into this, because it's not just a discussion here and there that's going to save us human beings. We need more time to be able to process this information, right? But what do we do now? We go to work, we work hard, when we come home, we're exhausted, we put on Duck Dynasty, we fade away with whatever we fade on, we go to bed, we wake up and we do the same thing all over again. We're too goddamn tired and exhausted to better ourselves. And this is part of the problem, unfortunately. So to bookend and back to Anderson and what I do, I'm just trying to get people to realize that, holy shit, I've been on autopilot my whole life, literally my whole life. Time to wake up. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to point people towards tools that can help you. But the one big caveat I'll tell everyone is don't listen to anyone. Listen to yourself. Take advice, do your own research, and listen to your own rational mind. Nobody knows your reality. Nobody can give you better advice than your own rational mind.
Correct. With that being said, there's a saying that goes around a lot where people say, I'm here for a good time and not for a long time, meaning, they want to have fun. They want to enjoy their life as much as they can, but they don't care about the consequences that follow after. What are your, and that's how I see it, but what are your thoughts behind when people say that, that they're here for a good time and not for a long time?
To each their own. I mean, just the only caveat here is they don't care about the consequences. We assume that they're not hurting anyone, right? They're only hurting themselves.
Hopefully.
So, right. So I had something else that I do under Anderson's hat, and I keep saying Anderson. It's not my real name, right? Anderson's the character I've created to kind of, it's the best of me that talks about all this stuff. But something else that Anderson does is I do one-on-ones to help people, mentorship. Okay. And I had this gentleman that wanted to pursue UFC fighting. And he contacted me after one of my episodes on Dare to Live. And he was saying, look, man, I've been struggling with this. Like, I don't know what the right moral decision behind this is. Like, I want to keep fighting. I know the dangers of it. My fiance doesn't want me to. Like, how do I handle this? And I told him the same advice I give everyone else. I said, don't ask anyone else and just write down everything down to the minutest detail, honestly. Pro and con. This includes not just your life with your fiance, but your life. Why do you want to wake up in the morning? Why do you want to wake up again tomorrow? Why not just go to sleep now and be done with it? Think about what you want to accomplish. You touched upon the key word there before, necessity. What is your necessity? For some people, like me, apparently it was to do some good for humanity. For others, necessity might be to, accumulate knowledge, pursue money if they want, whatever. As long as you're not hurting anyone and you've identified and defined your necessity clearly, well, then you can have a hope at least to live some type of a good life in a disciplined fashion, right?
Interesting. since we're on the topic of here for a good time, not a long time, and how hopefully the consequences of that is just hurting yourself. I'm gonna try to go to the dark. If there's a dark side of stoicism, because it seems like stoicism right now, from what we're talking about, is being emotionally intelligent. Kind of acting authentic, being able to filter out the outside influences, and living virtuously.
Spot on.
Is there another side of that? Is there a dark side of that? We mentioned superheroes that embody the Stoic character. Is there a villain side of Stoicism?
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a villain, right? I'm a piece of shit. I know I make mistakes every day. You're goddamn right. I upset people every day. I don't know who necessarily. It might be some guy on the road that I cut off and pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
It might be someone at work where I had to make a decision. It was the right decision. I know it's going to upset people. We can't make everybody happy. So I took the unpopular opinion, right? Because to me, the truth matters more. If we use the Captain America and Bucky example,
yeah,
I would have turned him in right away. I would have been like, here, come here, Bucky, come here for that would have been
beers.
The end of it. Yeah, exactly. I pursue, and guys, don't forget, this is my interpretation of Stoicism, right? Other people might have their own definition, but the way I interpret it, I pursue truth, honesty, and virtue to the best of my abilities with what I know now. Part of that honesty admits that, of course, I'm going to be a villain to many, many people. There's never...
You can't please
everybody. You can't have the good
everybody.
without the bad, right? Look at any conflict in the world, like Ukraine, Russia. I'm sure people have a side... Ukraine or Russia, depending on which media you listen to and what part of the world you live in, right? Clearly, there's two sides to this. Living in the West over here, from what I see, it's all one-sided. I'm like, how could this atrocity happen, right? But there's a whole other side to it as well. So I guess to answer your question, yeah, absolutely. There's as much villainy as there's honesty, because that's just the nature of the game. Stoicism doesn't make me a good person because I never do bad. It makes me a good person in my eyes because I have defined what I want and I'm comfortable living in pursuit of that, and I don't care about what any external has to say about what I do.
I see. So it's, I mean, like, because we're all friends over here. Danny, Kyle, Patrick. They like to call me an asshole. They like to say I'm the asshole, but I feel like
you are. No, I'm kidding.
From time to time, we'll say that.
I mean, come on, Anderson. You've been viewed as that asshole as well. It's kind of like Stoicism is not just one side. We mentioned Wolverine. Some see Wolverine as an asshole, but some people have to say what needs to be said. And I think it's a little bit more honorable to be able to express yourself genuinely instead of kind of bullshit to people just to make them happy. Like, what you're dealing with. I'm not here to hurt you, but I'm going to tell you what I think. If that offends you, like, Stoicism is also dealing with that. I offended you. It's not just being full on asshole. Oh, you don't like it and fuck you. You know what I mean? It's almost like, oh, if you're my friend, you were offended by that. I still had to say my truth. It's dealing with that, right? Just like you said with the angry stuff. Like, I broke the toaster. I got to get another one. But how do I prevent breaking another one? Or how do I don't know, not scare my dog next time by throwing that toaster, but first I got to replace the toaster. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So before I get to the we can talk about a how. Also, I'll give a quick example. But honesty, Stoicism is about honesty. So being honest in your content, to call people on, if you need to call BS on someone, you can call BS on someone. That's honest. However, if you're a jerk in the way you do that, well, that makes you a different kind of asshole. So you can be an asshole for speaking the truth. And then you could be an asshole for how you speak the truth. So it's just two things to consider. But Stoicism won't tell you, again, it won't dictate how you should do stuff. It'll just tell you, hey, if you were the asshole type number 1, don't worry, it happens. If you're asshole type number 2, that you can change, and this is how. Like, we're human beings, guys. We are who we are, right? As long as there's respect and a rational discourse, everything is resolvable. Everything.
Right.
So would you agree in a way that it's not what you do or what you say, but rather than how you do it and how you say it then?
Oh, I'd say it's both, right? It matters what you say as well.
Okay.
Like you can be the nicest person
Okay.
in the world, but if you're just stupid, there's no cure for stupid, right?
No, right,
Don't
right,
really
right.
help bridge any gaps, right? I think it's important to do both. In today's culture, I think we're too focused on the latter. We're focused to, it's the Harvey
Okay.
Specter syndrome, right? It's like how you send it. It doesn't matter what you say as long as you come out on top. Sure, it works, but it also causes, consternation, heart attacks, reduced immune systems, and general unhappiness and sleepless nights. I choose to go the other way now, where it's more honest. I might look a little bit silly in the moment, but this guy's sleeping at night and I'm feeling good.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
I love how you put Stoicism, because for me, I take it as more, it's something that's more for the perspective of enjoy the process instead of a final destination, right? Because going back to what you said, Danny, you were asking is it what you say or versus how you say it? I feel like based on this conversation, Stoicism is both of those. Like I said what I said and I said how I said it. Now the Stoicism factors into now what do you do after that? Like, do you care about these people enough to like feel that they were hurt by it and then make a move to try to make amends from there? Or like, or should you even reconsider and think back if you really meant what you said,
Exactly. You're hitting the nail on the head.
Right. It's more of a in the process ongoing thing instead of I'm almost stoic, I'm stoic now.
Yeah, you don't do stoicism. You just are. It's not in the world of ethics and morality, there's deontology, which is a set of rules. That's usually what we're used to, right? Religion or like a corporate code of ethics. If you do these, then you're a good person, right? We then also have consequentialism, which is what we try to do. You think about what's going to happen and you base a decision on that. You're trying to do the best outcome for the greater good. Stoicism comes in between the two and says you're both right and you're both wrong because you just can't know which one to do in every situation. So here's what I call virtue ethics. This is Stoicism talking. And now I put the onus onto you. You, the individual, have to decide what is the right thing and the wrong thing to do. You have to be able to make a business case for yourself in your mind, as if you're in a court of law, let's say. You do not get to outsource your decision-making to a Bible or a book or a parent or a religious overlord or whatever. You have to choose what's right and wrong, and you have to justify it.
Right. So let's go back to the tools, because like I said, for me, being angry, I know sometimes I need to take myself out of there. I know sometimes maybe I should send this message tomorrow. You know what I mean? and proofread it then instead of just sending this fire message right now. What are some tools that you've picked up on the way that you could share with us to kind of gain some clarity in that mental storm of emotions when you're going through it?
Yeah, there's really only one. Okay, it's meditation. And I'm not talking about just Zenful, peaceful meditation where you sit in a quiet corner. I'm talking about the Stoic meditation, which is where we write, journal. You talk to yourself. When you put pen to paper, right? This doesn't work on a keyboard or anything, but when you put pen to paper, you cannot help but trigger your rational mind. Try writing, and you'll notice after a while, it's hard to write emotionally. You're usually typically almost thinking with your logical, rational mind. So using the journal is going to be your key tool to break down all patterns. Okay. First thing to do is identify them. You do that by writing it down. Then you pick a small battle to win, right? This is baby steps. So you can't try and become a non-angry person overall, but you can try and control responses to, I don't know, maybe you have a girlfriend currently that you're always, fighting at night after the fourth glass of Patron or whatever. And you're like, I want to control my responses. So that becomes your goal. And you give yourself directives, like little exercises. Okay. It's not rocket science. This is no different than going to the gym where you start picking up little weights and putting them down until you progressively are able to lift the bigger weights and put them down. The mind is no different. There's no quick solution, unfortunately. As the Dalai Lama would say, there's quick solutions and there's good solutions. So the good solution to this is start writing a journal, start keeping a journal. This is key. Even if you don't write every day, even if you don't write regularly, at least write about the issues you're trying to solve. And identify a discernible pattern within you, which is the part you can control. And then from there, you can start attacking little bits by giving yourself, objectives and tasks.
That's interesting. I never thought about the writing would trigger that part of your brain. That's actually really interesting, because if you think about it, after a while, I've been mad at work writing people up, and it's like, oh man, should I really write this guy up? But I mean, to that point, to add to that, if you really think that person messed up, then you really write them up. You have that same enthuse going in, finishing the letter, right?
Of course, it's just you don't do it in the moment, right? Now you've waited, you've taken a deep breath. Perhaps you've thought about it overnight. You've written down bullet points of pros and cons. Maybe you're calm enough now to look honestly on the other side. Like, why shouldn't I write them up? Because there is another side to the story. And you consider all of these, and then you write them up. Hey, maybe it's going to be actually even worse, right? Maybe it's going to be a lot more favorable. Who knows? Stoicism won't tell you to, do this or do that. It's just telling you to look at all the data honestly. Don't let your emotions cloud your judgment or make you look at it from your own perspective, which you have. We know we have a subjective view. So try to consider other people, try to consider all truths, and just try your best to make a good decision. And if you can't, fuck it, man. You're human. Move on.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I love the attitude too, because for anybody that's really trying to change their life or pick up a new attitude or mentality, I feel like a lot of the momentum, and I mean, Kyle, you can chime in on this. Kyle is currently trying to quit smoking right now. When you've been going on a good streak, let's say 2 months, 3 months of not smoking, and then you backslide, man, all that momentum is gone. And it seems like all that momentum gets turned on you and just lands on you, right?
Yes.
And why does it seem that way? What has actually changed? What has actually happened other than the reality, which is you're a human being and you just fucking slip, versus your expectation of, I'm going to do this cold turkey because I'm awesome and I can do it and I'm not going to touch anything for the next 6 months. The only thing that changed is you slipped up. And all of a sudden, the story in your mind now is like, whoa, the world's coming down. Life is shit. I don't want to deal with this anymore. Let me just grab a whole pack and chain smoke it. Right? It's all in your head. It's all in your head.
Exactly.
So if you write these down in your journal and you have a clear objective, then when you slip up, you can go back and say, okay, I'm not that bad. I'm not that bad, because we're just human beings.
That's
awesome.
That concept is a staple in the anti-porn community, because that's something I'll be transparent. I don't care. I was addicted to porn. I still struggle with it here and there. But there was a point after my divorce where I discovered Terry Crews and his experience with porn, and I found out porn was bad as opposed to what my basketball teammates would preach to me. It was like we were just trading, porn videos with each other. Like, this is all natural, And then after my divorce, I was like, oh, okay, I got a problem. So, I would get on a 1 week streak and then, backslide 2 week. And then eventually I got to like 3 years and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then one little slip up, would create a binge. And that was a staple in this no fap community, that they would tell you, if you slip up, don't let that be an excuse to watch it every single day. Yeah. Remind yourself to to get back on the horse and keep going. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that.
It's almost self-sabotage too. Like, let's say you've been on a good streak for 2 years, you slip up and then fuck it, I'm a binge. You know what I mean? It's like all the pros that you've just built up, like you're actively ruining now because of you. The slip up might be situational. It might not even have anything to do with you, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that, when I was preparing for this episode, there was something I came across which was like a simple definition of Stoicism, and it says, it is a philosophy of life that maximizes positive emotions, reduces negative emotions, and helps individuals to hone their virtues of character.
Nice.
So, when you guys talk about stumbling upon a journey or, a setback on a goal that you're trying to reach, it just aligns perfectly with this philosophy. You know,
Right.
you don't just because you fell off course doesn't mean you change your destination. You have to maximize the wins and then minimize the losses.
Yeah, you're talking about shifting the emotional spectrum, which is something we try and do. We try and teach, and then all it means is, no matter how shit life is, there's always good stuff there's always something cool. In this moment, you're all focused on me right now, but you can just stop, turn away from your screen, look out the window, look at something. There's something you haven't noticed in your room that's awesome, probably.
But you're so handsome, Anderson.
Thank you. Don't tell my wife. The important part here is I'm driving it back to necessities again, right? The target. What is your objective when you're quitting smoking? It's not to be the best quitter of smoking. It's not to never, ever again inhale a cigarette again, but it's to be the best human being you can, right? That's your goal. And you just happen to have identified at that moment in time, part of being the best human being is not smoking. So that's on my top 5 now. I have to pay attention to this, right? And a part of our continuous improvement, self-continuous improvement, we're always going to have things to fix. And that top list is always going to change. But what's important is just because it's not a focus anymore, doesn't mean that we should let ourselves fall back into old habits. And this is where a journal can help us keep a steady course, because we can log the things that we've been working on and fix. Our autopilot wants to go back to the dopamine drive, right? It doesn't know any better. It's not bad. It's a dumb monkey that we're in, right? It just wants to pursue dopamine. So it's going to want to fall back in old habits. This is another way in which keeping a journal or concise notes can help you stay focused on your task at hand.
Is there a specific addiction that, you don't have to be explicit, it could be something minor, but is there something personal that you've struggled with that, journaling has concretely helped you conquer or fix?
Yeah, all of them. With I still make a living, unfortunately, under my normal name. Hopefully one day I can make a living under Anderson Silver and talk a lot more openly about this. Unfortunately, mental health being treated the way it is in our modern society, which is terrible. I still hold some cards close to my heart. However, name it. We're all in the same boat, guys. Like, name the addiction. I've gone through it. I went to college. I went to university. I'm North America overprivileged. I had my experimentations. And even today, like, I'm addicted to I'm addicted to work, right? On the weekends, I relax in the wood shop or the garage working on my car, but I'm still working, right? My body's tired. I should be resting my body, but I'm still like, no, I got to stay busy, right? That's an addiction. TV, despite every effort, man, I still watch like easy 3 hours of TV every day. Easy. And I hate that. Like, I really fight against this, but it adds up, right? 15 minutes here, half an hour there. So yeah, addictions, plenty. Cell phones is another one, guys. Let's not underestimate how addictive cell phones are. Okay.
Oh yeah.
When was the last time you had a meal without putting it on the table? You know what I mean? Or that you didn't reach for it immediately as soon as it buzzed? That would be the biggest addiction, right? Social media is another one. Like, people just don't realize how, I'm going to say shitty, quote unquote, shitty compared to social media real life is, right? They just kind of live in this false reality. And naturally, they're going to be bummed out in their lives. Like, oh, this is so shitty. So addictions galore, guys, everywhere. Personally, Stoicism has saved my life twice. I truly believe in this philosophy. I don't call myself a Stoic. I'm pursuing wisdom, although most of my philosophy is dominated by Stoicism. And I really encourage it to anyone out there. Check it out. Not just my stuff. My stuff's free and it's beginner stuff, but stay away from sophists like Ryan Holiday and whatnot. That's more of a business. But listen to people like Massimo Pigliucci, great Stoics out there that can teach you to live a good life. It's not about being great, not about others appreciating you, loving you. It's not about accomplishing something. You are not special. I'm not special. We're just here. We're here. Right. We don't want to hurt. We just want to live a good life and take the most out of this life that we can before it's gone. We don't know what's after. We don't care. We're just trying to live a good life here and get along with everyone.
I love that.
That's
and
great.
Just to add more value to journaling, like, I don't think people realize how much we try to take things in and store things up in our mind, you know, in the environment that we're in. You know, you mentioned cell phones, screens everywhere. I have freaking 5 screens in front of me right now. I mean, I mean, I'm guilty. I've gone to the fridge and been like, what the fuck am I doing here? You know what I mean? Yeah. So just imagine like actual like diamonds in the rough thoughts that you have that you don't write down, or certain challenges that you have to keep in mind that you don't write down, you know?
Yeah.
So I think journaling really, I mean, for me, I've journaled inconsistently, but the times that I was journaling, obviously, it's just like religion, right? The times that you pray the most is when you need God the most. So the times I was journaling the most is obviously when I was going through some shit. But I can reiterate that it does make the narrative in your head concrete. You know, it makes it real instead of just imaginary land. Oh, I'm going through something in my head.
You nailed it. You know what it is?
I love that.
The challenge is articulating it. Because we have the thoughts in there and we have the emotions, but we can't articulate it to ourselves. And so we can't articulate it externally and we get frustrated. So by writing out your thoughts, it's like a mental regurgitation on a piece of paper. To your point, you organize your thoughts and you're like, this seminal point is precisely why I'm unhappy. Right. Now I can deal with it. So you feel better. You can communicate with the external world better. And it's overall great tool.
I think it's just you're putting it. Go ahead, Patrick.
Oh no, okay. I was just gonna say it's even like when you're writing something down. If it's really personal, it could even be there could even be a difficulty with what you're writing, and you know, being honest with yourself of what you're writing. Sometimes it's difficult to even put it down. You know, and being honest with yourself, like, oh man, I got to look back at this and you know, and face that.
That's a very good point. If it helps to write and shred, that's fine. Okay, so you bring up a good point here. We're just touching upon journaling here. It's a whole other topic. In fact, I'm writing a book about this. Yeah, it's such an important tool. I'm sorry, my mind ran off and I forgot the question. Could you run that by me again, please?
Oh, I was just saying how when we're journaling, or you know, however you want to describe it, that it could be often difficult to even write down what you want to say because of how difficult it may be to be honest with yourself of what you're writing.
Yeah. So that's something I ran into with a lot of mentees I worked with. It's very common, and yours truly was included, for the first month or 2 or 3 of your journal to just be dark. Like when I first started writing, I went back to read some of these. I was like, there's something wrong with me, dude. Like I should get checked in. Like it's dark. Okay. We're angry. There's a lot in there. So at the very beginning, before you can form a habit of journaling and having a conversation with yourself, you have to get in the habit of writing. So you have to go through this, you know, verbal diarrhea for a little bit. If it helps to burn that, sure, go ahead and do it. There's no right way to do this, right? I've kept them because I go back from time to time. I still have my, I look at the first page, the first line I wrote, whoever's going to read this, boy, are you in for a journey. And then the rest is just like a gibberish kind of mess. And I'll read this sometimes and go, man, I've come a long way. So, to your point, it's not easy, but that's why we do it. Therein lies the challenge, right?
Right. Shadow work.
I wanted to say that journaling, I think, is because you were saying we think about it and it's in our head, but journaling is you're putting it out. My mentor always used to tell me that our thoughts become our words and our words become our actions. So, I mean, writing it down is somewhat, our words, and we're putting it out into the world. Now that it's concrete, you look at it and now you're going to act on it because it's right there instead of just sitting in our head, just a lingering thought.
Yeah, beautiful.
So.
You think people were more in touch with their emotions back when they had clay tablets because it took a lot longer to put those thoughts into clay?
No. Emotions. Look, consider this. Okay, we're just predominantly hairless monkeys. Okay, look down. We're hairless, ugly, bipedal monkeys. Our bodies are no different than any other mammal we see out there. animals that are scurrying around to get food all day long, they're not worried about anything else. They're not thinking about anything else. They just want to feed their stomach, right? No different for human beings. So most human beings in the past were just worried about feeding their stomach. Nobody had the time until we settled down after the agricultural revolution in ancient Anatolia, which is now Turkey, which is where ancient Greece is. Only at that point where we started having cities called cityopolises. They were like city-states, Athens being one of them. And we had enough farmers making enough food that was left over for rich assholes to sit around and just think. Only at that point do we start looking up at the stars and thinking, okay, hold on, why am I here? Like, what the hell are we doing here, guys, right? And this is where philosophy came from, right? This is why philosophy starts in ancient Greece. So did they have emotions like we did? Yeah, of course they did. We're the same machine. The machine has not evolved much more. However, I don't believe they had as much time to sit and think about their emotions and let their emotions brood, right? They were working until, think about just 2 generations ago, right? My grandparents were working, my grandparents were working in factories until like fucking 9 p.m. And then you come home and you pass out. Like, you don't have time to think. Right. I'm sad or I'm angry. Kind of the way we treat cattle, right? So I don't believe that most human beings felt it. Had time to think about their emotions, which is why we read about it from these rich assholes like Seneca and all them. All these Stoics were, emperors, richest people in Rome. Like only they had time to think about this and write the stuff down.
Except for Epictetus, right? He was a slave.
Epictetus was a slave turned philosopher teacher who made a fortune actually teaching rich people's kids what he learned as a slave. Yeah.
So cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Guys, I got to wrap this up in about 5 minutes.
Oh, I got one question for you, man. Sorry,
sure,
guys.
Yeah,
I don't mean to sound neurotic.
Happy to do a follow-up episode if you guys want, by the way. I love talking about this stuff any day, every day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Jarizi was talking about, the dark side of Stoicism. And then, we're talking about journalism. I don't know much about nihilism. I'm not going to pretend like I'm like some sort of expert on it, but I know a little bit about Friedrich Nietzsche and how he went too deep into the exploration of his shadow and his mind, and he, descended into madness. How do you, reconcile exploring these dark emotions? And, you even mentioned it yourself, like, should I get checked? Like, these are some dark thoughts. Like, how do you reconcile, trying to journal and explore that dark side of yourself, but then also not descend into nihilism and just not want to be on this planet? How do you reconcile that?
Right. That's well. First thing about nihilism and Nietzsche here, I have to give a shout out to Nietzsche because he gets a bad rep. This poor guy. I'm a big fan of his. He was not Stoic, but he had a lot of Stoic writing. I'm glad you brought him up. And nihilism was the big thing. He did go crazy at the end of his life, but that's because he had syphilis. Just so everyone knows, he went batshit crazy at the end. He was eating his own poop. It's called. He was coprophobic. He was eating his own poop at the end in the hospital, so he really went. But what he was writing about, actually, when he said God is dead and we've killed him, it wasn't like a triumphant, like, look what we did. He was weeping for humanity. He was saying, look, man, okay, fine, religion is nonsensical, I admit it. However, here these industrial revolution and sciences have completely destroyed the religion, and we have nothing in its place. There is no moral authority left. What are we to do? And he almost foreshadowed the great wars, right? So Nietzsche was actually a really, really a good, sympathetic human being. Just gets a bad rep because his sister sold the stuff to the Nazis. That tends to give you bad publicity. One thing I like from his book called Thus Spoke Zarathustra is he has a great quote. He says, "The more my tree of wisdom grows up towards the sky, the further my roots dig in deep into the ground and the darkness."
Yes.
Because he recognizes the duality within. Okay, I keep coming back to the duality within, and maybe that's the episode we have to do. But the starting point is we have to accept there's the body and the mind, and they're completely separate. If you're an atheist and you don't believe that there's something more within you, look in the mirror. You're going to notice that you call yourself me, but you'll notice you call yourself me year after year as your body changes, right? I don't look the same as I did 20 years ago, but I still call myself me. So it's not the physical that's me, right? There's something more.
Wow.
Now, that something more is the software that's evolved the hardware. The hardware is just an animal. It's not bad, but it's not good either. It just follows what it does. And because we're a product of our environment, it does really bad things right now. So we have to train it to do better. And what we have to be careful about is, as a Stoic, as I strengthen myself and I make myself a lot more capable, like a superhero, with great power comes great responsibility, right? I'm also able to do a lot more damage because now I am holding a lot more information, because I'm not as emotional. I can really cut deeper with my arguments. Right? The darkness is always there because my body wants to pick up a stick and hit my competition because it thinks that there is a lack of resources out there. And if somebody else gets a promotion, that's less resources for me to get. And therefore I'm going to starve. My animal brain is still stuck on net zero gaming from back when we were in the savannah, right? That darkness is always there. Stoicism makes it stronger, but it also helps me control it better. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, if you will.
Right. I think we also mentioned about how when you go to rock bottom, sometimes it's good because your roots that you plant are going to be deeper, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
Nice.
like this conversation, the topic, I mean, I feel like the theme is life is never a static thing. It's an ongoing process. So
Bravo.
like, just like if you do get stuck into darkness, it's not over yet. Like you're going to still keep going. So
You're not stuck,
that's where the journaling comes in hand of man, I was in a dark place then, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So thanks for coming on, Anderson Silver. We don't want to keep you anymore, but we
Thank
do
you.
want to schedule a second episode with you. This was great. Quick plug. Do you want to just put out your website and your socials where people can find you?
Sure. The website is stoicismforabetterlife.com. Podcast is free. Articles are free. Everything there is free except the books. Books are cheap if you want them. You can have them. If not, there might be PDF copies out there. Just go read it. just read the stuff, guys. Wisdom is in the domain of everybody.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank
This
you.
is the Cave Podcast, and we will see you next time.
Peace.
All right.
See ya.
Take care.
Bye.